Hi, my name is Miriam Khan. I'm a speech student, and this is my reflection on language and words. So, to start off, one time I learned a new phrase or slang, and it was around 1 or 2 years ago, and I was in the seventh grade. My classmates kept on saying stuff like, quote unquote, "Chat, am I cooked?" or "Chat, is this real?" I kept on hearing this in my classes, and for a while I was super confused. I was like, who is Chat, and why does everyone keep on saying their name? Who are they? But then I did a quick Google search and realized that it's what streamers say to talk to their audience, and they call them chat because the audience talks for the chat box in the live streams. It's almost similar to like saying, guys, is this real? But replace the word guys with chat. Even after finding out the meaning, I still found it really weird and confusing because I couldn't understand who chat was. I thought, how could you address someone without them actually being there? Like, who is this, like, fourth person you're talking about? Sometimes I like to think that when people say chat or, like, quote them, they're talking to, like, some sort of imaginary friend or ghost, and it makes me laugh sometimes. But now that I'm older, I have seen language change a lot, and mainly most of those changes come from social media, I think. Like, many emojis have changed meaning over time. A few ones I can think of right now are the skull emoji, which used to mean deaf, but it now means that you're dead of laughter. So instead of replying it to something sad or a post about someone passing away, you would now post it to something that makes you like dead of laughter, like metaphorically. And if you put the skull emoji to like an actual post of someone passing away, then people would misunderstand that meaning and it would look like you're making fun of their death. Another emoji that's changed is the crying emoji, which again, kind of like the skull emoji, used to be for sad things, but nowadays people use it to say that they're crying from laughter. Another language thing I've noticed that didn't exist when I was younger, like I'm talking about slang. So, slang that didn't exist when I was younger. And when I mean younger, I'm thinking about when I was in elementary school, so before 2021. And some new slang words like delulu, which is short for delusional, and another one which is riz, which is short for charisma. Those words didn't really come up in TikTok they didn't come up until in TikTok around 2 or 3 years ago. I think another thing I have seen in common with slang these days is just how much of the words are just abbreviations. I feel like a lot of slang these days is just mainly abbreviations of words that we already have in the dictionary. And I mean, even in the 2000s and 2010s, people used abbreviations to save money on texting rates originally, but nowadays it's used for convenience, so that your hands don't get too tired when texting, or to make it easier for your post to be read. So words or phrases like ASAP, which means as soon as possible, LOL, laughing out loud, IDK, standing for I don't know, or NGL, which stands for not gonna lie. And even words like delulu and riz are actually just abbreviations of their original words. Like delulu is a short version of delusional, and riz is just a short version of charisma. It's different than language decades ago, before tech devices, because before then, when there was no tech devices, you spoke using your voice most of the time, and abbreviations weren't necessary. But now, I think with how prevalent social media is, it's way more convenient to shorten words because they can be easier to read and they're easier to type out. Something I have noticed when language has differed between generations is that sometimes I feel like, even if, for example, the older generations say slang from Gen Z, it just doesn't hit the same way. It almost feels like they're just trying to say it to relate to us, but they truly don't know the actual meaning of the word. I see this a lot with my middle school teachers, and they would try to say Gen Z or Gen Alpha slang, like mid or no cap or slay. And after saying that, my classmates would just look at them really weirdly or even chuckle a little bit, even if they said it in the right context. It's like, even if like a younger Gen Z person said it, they said it in the same context as they would. It's just they're in a different generation. So those like examples make me feel like that slang is usually exclusive to one group, and it feels abnormal if people outside that group try to use it. Like, for example, millennial or Gen X teachers trying to say Gen Alpha slang. It just doesn't hit the same way. So I feel like slang is sometimes exclusive. And with words taking on new meanings, for example, like, when I think of that, whenever words take on new meanings, I think of the word fine, like F-I-N-E. The word fine has many definitions depending on the context, like, for example, having fine hair, or you could say the word fine to reply to someone, like, fine, I'll do it, or fine, I'll do the chores. Or you could use it to describe how you're feeling, like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing fine, how about you? So there's a lot of ways you can use that word, but there's a new meaning I've seen online on the internet, and nowadays the word fine means someone highly attractive. Like, if you look at someone really cute, you'd say, whoa, that guy's super fine. I want to ask him out. I don't know where that new meaning came from, but it's used a lot of days, especially on the internet. And I feel like that's a really good example on how words take on new meanings, even if they're just like simple words that we've used forever in the dictionary. If one person says it, then multiple people kind of like bandwagon on that new meaning, and then collectively we all just follow that meaning, even if it doesn't really make sense. I think that's really cool. And one last thing is that some slang I think you probably wouldn't know is, I'm gonna like have some trouble explaining this, but some slang I think you probably wouldn't know is the word son, like S-O-N, and then after that it's the crying face emoji. The images in the catchphrase were originally like meant to convey being lightheartedly disappointed by someone or something, and like crying, laughing about it. It's kind of used similarly to like the slang bro to convey something like, bro, are you serious? That meaning is kind of similar to the slang word son. It originally surfaced on apps like Reddit and TikTok, and it's starting to get a lot of multiple uses. Sometimes it's used to reply to someone who said something like really stupid or ridiculous. So you type son with the crying face emoji to express your disappointment about how ridiculous something someone said was. Other times it's used to reply to someone in disappointment, like if you said something disappointing, you would just reply with son. It's almost like replying, it's the same thing as replying it with like dude or bro, like you're crazy for that. I think it has the same meanings as those other words. And other times this is a really weird variant or like really weird definition of the word. Sometimes other people will just make variants of the word, like they'll use it in the same meanings like I said before, like showing disappointment or replying to something ridiculous, but instead of saying the word son, they'll merge it with another word and say something like, for example, you have the word onion and you have the word sun, and then you combine them together and it turns into sunyon. Or you have the word Sunday, mix it with the word sun, you combine them and it becomes Sunday, which there's an emphasis on the word sun. And there's another one, it's my favorite. You take the word Capri Sun and then just put an emphasis on the sun. So instead of Capri Sun ending with S-U-N, you respell it with the words S-O-N, or the letters S-O-N. So it turns into Capri Sun with an emphasis on sun. And I think that's just a really absurd and funny way that people are using the new slang, even if it just means the same way as it did before, but they're trying to change it. And I just like looking at how creative people can get with making up the new variants of the word. I think it's really funny, even if it doesn't make that much sense. I think that the word, like that slang son, will be less used over time, kind of like how many people don't say like 6'7" anymore. It's not really as popular anymore, and I feel like the trend's gonna pass soon. And when I'm on social media, I don't really see anyone misusing the term. I think it's kind of self-explanatory. Like I said before, it's similar to saying, dude, come on, or bro, really. I feel like those are some equivalent phrases. And I think that's all I have to say about that reflection. Your lectures are really, really nice to listen to, and I really like learning from them and getting to see like how important certain aspects of communication are. And I feel like so far I'm learning more about communication, and I think like I'm starting to become a better communicator. So I'm really having a lot of fun with this class, and thank you for listening.